What is author marketing mastery through optimization, you ask? I'm going to tell you. It's the best way for us authors to make a living selling our books. Are you tired of hearing gurus tell you your book is only good enough to be a lead magnet for services? Are you tired of feeling like you have to be a slave to social media and then frustrated when that time doesn't actually help you sell books? I was too, until I found Ammo. Ammo is the only program that reliably produces results, and it works for anyone. Is it hard work? You bet. Do you have to overcome some of your own prejudices to make Ammo work for you? Absolutely. But rather than being another program that rah-rah shish-goom-bahs tries to get you emotionally excited only to offer unclear methods, Ammo shows you how to design profitable ads step by step through a unique, never-before-tested formula. The founder, Steve Piper, is a data-loving, formula-driven author who escaped the kingdom of Amazon to build a platform for himself where he sold directly to his readers and built a loyal following. With Ammo, you know who's reading your books, how to contact them, and what they want to read next. If you've always been frustrated with Amazon's wall of mystery, of not knowing who's reading your books, of losing 50 to 70% of the hard-earned money you make through book sales, Ammo solves all of those problems by putting you in the driver's seat and showing you how to fulfill your books directly to your readerships. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. My guest on today's episode is Alana Terry. She is selling a ton of paperbacks, ebooks, audiobooks, and she's doing it directly from her own store as well as on Amazon. That's what blows me away about how successful Alana has been. She's selling books everywhere she goes. She looks right, she's selling books. She looks left, she's selling books. She looks up, she's selling books. She looks down, she's selling books. She looks southwest and south, north and northeast and everywhere, and there's just books flying off the metaphorical shelf. You should listen in and see what she's doing. Christian thrillers, folks. I haven't read a Christian thriller in my life, and if I'm going to be honest, I don't plan to. But I know that what she's doing is working really well, because anybody who is reading Christian thrillers is reading Alana Terry. That's kind of cool. I do want to note that this is 2 episodes in a row that have the word religious or Christian in them. And so I just wanted to remind you, I am spiritual, but I'm not ascribed to any religious tradition. And I want to let you know that because that's just true. I'm not trying to, appeal to more people. That's where I'm at in my life. I think that there's some amazing things in spiritual teachings, and I hope that you do too. I grew up Christian. I still have a sense of that culture in me. But really, no matter who you are, please listen to this, because honestly, the beginning of this episode, she didn't even tell me that she was religious. I think secretly, a lot of us feel the same way, which is we would rather connect with each other and have an amazing experience sharing the journey than trying to be divisive. And that's really what we're all here for. So please enjoy my conversation with Alana Terry.
This is TRBM Ammo Edition. If you're a published author and want to make a living writing books and selling them to avid readers, you've come to the right place. There's simply no program that's more successful at driving readers towards the books you've written. So the only thing you have to worry about is writing a great book. And the system within Ammo takes care of the rest. Thanks for listening to this conversation.
What got you into writing? Why did you get the writing bug?
I think I had it from a very, very early age. Like, some of my earliest memories are before I could even read, I would dictate stories to my dad and he would type them out for me.
Wow.
So my mom liked to write. My grandma liked to write. I think in a lot of ways it was kind of in the blood. My dad was real supportive. So that had always sort of been the plan and the dream. And then I finished college. I got a little sidetracked on a pre-med track for a bit, but never got too far down that road. And had kids, needed some type of creative outlet, got back to writing, and that's sort of what's been my basically adult life since.
Okay. So you and I have a couple of shared commonalities in that, maybe not the same reasons, because I started into my ASN, intending to get my BSN, thinking the life of a person in the medical field is ideally suited for a writer, because you can work 3 12-hour shifts, make enough to
Right.
support a family or yourself or
Yeah.
whatever it might be, and then you have 4 days to really get into your writing and kind of build that career. And that was my thought process at that time. I got partway through and realized that medicine wasn't interesting to me. I wasn't disgusted by it. I was actually bored. I was working my nursing home rotations, and I thought, if I have to do this on a regular basis, I may die of boredom.
Oh no.
What was your reason for moving away from medical? Because that is a really lucrative career. Not as lucrative as being in ammo, but
Right.
right. Yeah.
Well, I think so. Like I said, my parents were very supportive of the writing to a point. And then by the time, like
Yeah.
when I was ninth, 10th grade, still talking about wanting to be a full-time writer, they were kind of like, maybe you should find, a fallback option.
Fallback. The
So it
dreaded
was
fallback.
right. It was a lot of family pressure. I was pretty academically driven. So I'm like, okay, what does somebody who's academically driven with good grades do? They go to med school. So I guess that's what I'm going to try to do. So I got my degree in biology in undergrad. I took the MCATs. I
Oh,
was
wow.
basically a
Great.
click of the button away from applying to med school when I realized like I haven't wanted
Don't
to
want
do this
this.
like in years. This has never been the
Wow.
actual
Wow.
dream and
Wow. Wow.
plan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was that like with you and your parents then? I imagine there was some friction.
There was some fiction. The funny story now that we can laugh about is I got the MCAT score. This would have been early 2000s. I don't think it came in the mail. I think it actually was like I think they mailed you a login. So
Yeah.
you get a letter in the mail. It doesn't give you your score, but it gives you like a website to go and find your score. So I've got one parent looking over my left shoulder, one parent looking over my right shoulder. We're going to go look at my MCAT scores. My science scores were okay. It wasn't going to get me into like the very, very, very top schools, but I would have gotten in somewhere. But my writing score, because the MCAT does have a writing question,
Right.
it was as high as you can get. And so my mom throws up her hand. She says she's going to be an author. And I think like the tone was
Oh, I love that.
exasperation, but it kind of turned into, the foretelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that so much. I had a similar experience. I never obviously took the MCAT because I was only doing kind of like nursing. You don't have to take that to do nursing. But when I went to grad school, you have to take the GRE. And it was the same thing for me, like math, science. They were okay because I actually do enjoy those subjects, but my writing was just off the charts. And I looked at that as really affirmation of what I was here on this planet to do. I'm curious with what you're talking about and thinking about medical and the practicality of being a doctor versus being a writer. Is there any element to your life that is, if not spiritual, just sort of in the same vein of that, kind of like expansive or universal, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it in a couple different ways. I do think that words have healing power, and I like to think that my novels have inspired readers. And so maybe in the same way that a doctor can heal somebody's cancer, for example, I like to think that, maybe I'm healing people from hurt or trauma or bitterness or boredom or disenfranchisement with the world. So there's for sure some of that. And then even when I was in biology, I loved the artisticness of it. Like I liked the type of lab work that wasn't just, I'm going to put these two things together and I know what I'm going to get. I really liked the let's explore. I think that there is a huge elements to art in the medical sciences and even in the research sciences. The data, because, like I worked as a lab tech, I was a chemistry TA in college, like all of the research stuff I did has actually really helped me with the marketing and the ammo and all of that. It's that same
it's sort of like the analytical mind.
And except I think where I was mistaken is I thought that if you were going to have an analytical mind, that you weren't going to be creative. I thought it was kind of an either or. And
Hmm.
so what I was very happy to discover is that there is a sense of creativity that comes in doing the research. And okay, if I make this graphic or that graphic for my Facebook
Hmm.
ads, what are readers going to say? Like, to me, it's very similar to if I don't know, if I write a fantasy or sci-fi, or if I mix this chemical or that chemical. There's a huge sense of curiosity that I think
Yeah.
comes into the writing, the marketing, and probably what also made me decent at science.
Yeah. Absolutely. One thing that I noticed early on, Naomi may or may not be listening, but I would get on the group with Ammo, and Naomi would be so utterly practical that sometimes I was like, she's mean.
Oh,
You know?
uh-huh.
And when you talk about that, that's what I think about, is that sometimes practicality feels that way a little bit, is it's
Mm-hmm.
very cut and dry. You think
Right.
this thing needs to change, and I know it needs to
Mm-hmm.
change, and practically you have to just do it. You have to get your emotion out of the way, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to get your logic and the data and the statistics behind you and do that thing. That's kind of what I hear you saying, is that you were prepped for that a little bit. You were prepared to blend your emotions with what the program kind of told you. Is that, am I off base there?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also in my mind, there's maybe less of a dichotomy. Like, for example, let's say I
Okay.
was to have gone through and become a doctor. I think I probably would have been the kind of doctor who's like, well, let's look at the lab results. And I also would have done some feeling things out. Right. So, like,
Yeah, of
if
course.
I've got a gut feeling about this, let's pursue it. I'm not going to go just on gut feeling. I'm
Mm,
not going to go just on analytics. It's kind of like, let's merge all the information that we have access to, and take some of everything. So I think that's kind of what I do even with Ammo and Facebook ads. It's,
yeah.
yeah, you I never turn my emotions totally off,
Yeah.
because I feel like I do have a little bit of intuitive curiosity that can help me try some things out that sometimes work.
Yeah. So that's interesting to me, because let's talk about a little. I don't know if you've had this experience before. I know I have on at least two occasions. And right
Mm-hmm.
now I'm running an ad that is wildly successful that should not be as successful as it is. But like, what are those moments where you look at the data and say this ad should be working and it's not? And how do you, for anybody listening that's not in ammo right now, by the way, it just think of this in terms of, you want to run ads anywhere,
Right,
and
right.
it's like even Facebook itself is telling you above average, above average, above average,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no sales. Like,
Right.
how's that happening? Where's the disconnect? And it's the emotion blended with the logic that starts to tell you
Mm-hmm.
something, right? Talk to me about that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So one thing I try to do, the one area that I do remain pretty detached about is the outcome. So I might be in love with the graphic I make, or I might think
Yeah.
I've come up with the cutest headline for an ad.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right?
Yep.
And so, but then there's also that sense of, here's something that worked for weeks and it all of a sudden stopped, right?
Mhm.
Or again, we're kind of getting in the realm of medicine, right? Like, you have a
Yes.
list of symptoms, but it could mean this, it could mean that, or it could just mean
Mhm.
that you didn't sleep well last night, right? And
Yeah.
so looking at all the data, and sometimes trying to see, okay, so like in your case, here's an ad that's getting me great clicks, like huge click-through rates, huge engagement, and nobody's buying, right?
Yeah.
Where do you need to look at? So I actually had this happen just last week. Like, all my numbers dropped pretty significantly, and I
Mm.
had to figure out, like, okay, is this, most authors, when they see, okay, I used to spend $100 on this campaign and get 150 back. Now I'm spending $100 on this campaign. I'm getting $70 back. Most
Mm. Yeah.
authors stop at, and therefore Facebook ads don't work. Right. And
Yes.
and
Right.
they don't. So I looked at all of my Facebook numbers. I looked at all the numbers on the web page I was sending people to. And then I looked at all the numbers on Shopify, because I didn't have enough data to know if it was Facebook's fault or if it was something else. And in my case, it turned out Facebook was doing what it always had been. Facebook was still sending the same number of people to my page, but
Yep.
that page just stopped converting. The page
Yeah.
stopped getting clicks. So you have to do a little bit of digging deeper. Um, I teach Amazon ads to authors, and Another mistake is I'll be like, yeah, well, I lost $20 on ads, so Amazon ads don't work.
And now time for a little ad break. Have you ever heard of the Luke in Time mysteries? If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you have. The host is also the author. The Luke in Time mysteries are for anybody who likes a little R-rated action with a bit of magic, as well as characters who do incredibly unlikely things, such as drink 2 gallons of bourbon in a single sitting. It's local, it's place-driven, it's voicey, it's hard-boiled, and where does all of Lyle's food come from? Find out these details and more when you buy the Luke in Time Mysteries. Click the link in the show notes, and we have every format available. Don't miss your chance to get a 60% discount just for being a podcast listener. Now back to the show.
Amazon ads have one job, and their job is to get somebody to your sales page. So if you spent $20, that means that people were getting to your sales page. So it's probably your sales page that wasn't working. So you do have to do a little bit of where in the process did this start to break down. And yeah, there is a little bit of both science and art figuring that out.
It's worth stopping here, because I'm thinking about, I had Dave Chesson as a guest on the podcast, and I will be blatantly honest, I actually didn't air the episode. It wasn't worth my listeners' time. Mm-hmm. I like Kindlepreneur. When I talked to him, it didn't feel like it translated into something valuable, but I run ads on Kindle. I've been running ads on Kindle for a little while. I think that there's something really valuable there. I think there's some cool stuff there. The way that works is that you pick your categories, your keywords, all those kind of things, and then they literally land on your book. They don't get to hear from you other than your cover and the content that you create, the A+ content that you create for Kindle. So you say you teach that. Talk to me a little bit about the things that are different, because in my opinion, and I may still be not perfectly educated, there's a massive difference between what works on Amazon and what works in Ammo.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Big differences is Amazon ads. I tend to see really good conversion rates because people are on Kindle browsing for books. Whereas when they're on Facebook, nobody logs on to Facebook to saying, I want to find a new series.
Yeah, right.
So,
exactly.
That's one thing I find, that both platforms have very robust algorithms, but they do different things. Like, they both have tons of data. Amazon's data is really interesting though, because Facebook knows who clicks on what. They know that, they could probably predict if they were to show me specifically 100 ads on a Wednesday, they could probably perfectly predict which 7 I'm going to click on.
Yeah.
Amazon knows the reading behavior, which, so they've got that in their favor. So I think those are some of the big differences, similarities. I think Amazon ads require a lot less tweaking. So I love doing both. I think they complement each other really well. Once I started Ammo, my Amazon ads really started performing even better because I was getting more traffic to my pages, and that kind of, I think, kickstarted the algorithm. I think Ammo is a lot more in depth because there are so many more moving parts. There's the Facebook ad, which has an image, a headline, a text, a description, an audience target option. Then there's your landing page, which is an infinite number of possibilities. And then there's the checkout page. Now with Amazon, it's basically just you make the ad, they go to your page. So there's less tweaking, which I find kind of nice. Amazon ads are a lot harder to scale though, because once you find something that works with the Ammo, you can, if I were to double my Facebook ads budget today, Facebook's going to double my budget. If I were to go in, right now, I'm spending maybe about $6,000 a month on Amazon ads and getting over 20,000 in book sales from that. I love that. If I could triple that, yes, I would. But if I were to just go in today and tell Amazon to spend 3 times my budget, they wouldn't do that. So Amazon takes over to scale up.
That's right. That's
and
a
they're
great
not
point.
they're not guaranteed to spend your budget. A big difference in how they charge you is Amazon charges you when someone clicks. And so all the impressions you get is free visibility, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, you
I've
can
thought
have
a lot about that.
Yeah, you can have 100,000 people see your book cover, 2 of them click, so you spend maybe $1 to get
Yeah.
100,000 eyes on your book cover.
Yeah.
Whereas with Facebook, they'll charge you anytime someone even like sneezes in your direction.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's pause real quickly because there are people who are listening to this podcast who are not doing either Amazon or Facebook ads, but they're listening as curious people and they're wondering, okay, what do I need to know about Amazon versus Facebook? And so the first question that comes to my mind is, with Amazon, do I have to be exclusive to Amazon in order to advertise with them, or can I advertise the same books on Amazon that I can advertise on the AMO program?
Yeah, great question. So you do not have to be exclusive to advertise with Amazon ads. And so that's a huge benefit. And what I've seen is they work really synergistically together, running the Amazon ads and the Facebook ads, because when people see my Facebook ads, the button sends them to my Shopify store, like to a checkout
Yeah.
page. But a lot of them are going and searching for the books on Amazon, which is their preferred way to read.
Yeah.
And then I have it set up so when somebody searches my name on Amazon, they see my ads. And so they're all kind of working together there in a pretty cool way. So no, you don't have to be exclusive, and even the opposite, they really do kind of support each other in a very nice way.
And when you're advertising a book on Ammo, there is a group of people who will say that you actually see a bump in sales on Amazon. And so I had a conversation with a gentleman who is kind of one of like the founders of the AMO program. And he doesn't advertise at all on Amazon, but he said he just saw a massive bump in his Amazon purchases. I'm the antithesis of that because
Really?
listen, I haven't scaled up as much as you have. I'm not quite in the same spot that you are. I'm starting to see some really major success with ammo on a particular ad, but it's taken me longer. And I think anybody listening to this podcast knows I'm a bit stubborn. And so I never loved the look of Steve's page. And so I always tried to like do this specific
Oh,
thing. The
uh-huh.
problem is that my stubbornness actually led to a lot of snags in the road. But I'm not scaled yet to the point where I'm seeing enough traffic that I think that people are really moving to Amazon. You have experienced, do you think that you used the word synergistic? Do you think you've experienced kind of that crossover effect where some people are seeing Facebook and they're buying on Amazon?
And then I'm seeing it in the other retailers too. Like I have quadrupled my Audible sales. So I'm in a way, I'm kind of kicking myself because my biggest ammo funnel is for a 9-book series. The first and second audiobooks in that series are royalty shares, so they have to remain exclusive to Amazon. I would love to have the rights to sell the audiobook directly, but I don't.
How long does that take, by the way?
Sorry. To get your rights or to make
because it's only a couple of years, right? You have to sign up for just a couple of years, or is it forever?
I believe, I haven't looked at the terms in a bit, but I believe that if you pay your narrator, it only has to be exclusive for a year if you select exclusive. However, if you do the royalty share, you're locked into 7 years. So to be fair, I'm past the 7 years for those first 2 books. I could go and hire someone else to re-record them, but they get a lot, like they've got tons of reviews on Audible already. I don't want to, don't want to change that. Don't want to change narrators.
That's good news though. Okay.
But, since I started really ramping up ammo, which was around July of this year, I've seen my Audible sales quadruple.
That's amazing.
So it's, like Amazon sales are picking up and sales and all the other retailers, because I think what people are doing, they're seeing the books, they're saying, oh, this looks great. And then they're going to wherever they prefer to buy books and they're looking for it there.
So we've got a couple other people in the program right now. Jonathan and Jennifer Yanez were previous guests, and they still have some Amazon Kindle exclusive stuff that they have on KU. So if you have a KU subscription, you can read those for free there. What's the value in doing that for you? Do you follow that, or do you feel like you want to go wide everywhere and just really hammer that through all channels at the same time?
Yeah, I've been wide now for quite a while, even before ammo, and I like it just because I didn't want all my eggs in the Amazon basket. Plus, like I write
Yeah.
Christian suspense. It never was the most KU dominant. Like I never got more than maybe 10-15% of my income from KU anyway. So it
Yeah.
wasn't too big of a deal for me to pull out and go wide. So yeah, I'm pretty committed to staying wide. All my audiobooks going forward are going to be non-exclusive, but like I said, that's the
Yeah.
one area where I'll probably keep them with ACX for now, just to keep
Sure.
the I think it would be kind of
Yeah.
disruptive to try to change things at the moment. But no, I
Yeah.
I like being wide. I like having the books in libraries. That's really important for me, that people who
Oh,
want to check them out digitally in libraries and things like that can do that. So yep.
I had Joanna Penn on this episode or on this podcast a little while ago, and she was upset with me because of my interpretation of a couple of things. One of
Mm-hmm.
them was that libraries did not disrupt my contract with Amazon. Am I wrong in your understanding of it?
My understanding is that if you are in Kindle Unlimited, your ebooks cannot be in library catalogs.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, I think that libraries are one of the coolest places in the world. I
Yes.
do a Wednesday
Mhm.
series for ammo, and I do a Monday series that for the past 4 months has totally been devoted to libraries because I think they're
Oh,
that
cool.
important. Yeah,
I
I
love
think
that.
libraries are just beyond anybody's understanding. The revenue that you can make from a relationship with libraries is more than people realize. Plus, the reach you can get through libraries is more than anybody can realize.
Mhm.
I have friends here in the Omaha area who won't do library readings anymore because they're like, I don't sell any books. And I say, you don't sell any books because you don't understand how libraries work.
Uh-huh.
You'll sell books through checkouts from Hoopla. You will
Hmm.
sell books through checkouts from Libby and
Yeah.
checkouts from the physical catalog because people in
Hmm.
the library world want to taste before they dive. What's your
Hmm.
experience there? I know that we can't quantify this, and so it's almost like antithetical to the ammo program.
Right.
But what have you seen from the point that you joined into the library stream into now?
I have not made focusing on library sales a priority. To me,
Mhm.
it's a little bit more about I want my books to be accessible to anybody who
Yeah.
wants them, and I want to keep libraries very relevant, right?
Yes,
So
me
a
too.
lot of people are like, why are libraries still important? I'm like, well, because even if people aren't going in to check out paperback or print books, which people still are, they're
Yeah.
so important for the internet, for the information, for the apps. So for me, the library, my strong desire to be in libraries had more to do with if somebody can't afford my books, I still want them to be able to find it somewhere. Plus,
Yep.
I want to make sure that libraries have quality content to keep on sharing so that they continue to be relevant for the entirety of human existence. So
Yeah.
I don't promote to libraries. I am working on getting more large print, and I'm hoping to maybe in the next, like it's kind of a mid burner project. I want to get more hardback versions out because I think that will be a more library friendly type of format as well. But
Mhm.
for me, it's more about giving libraries access to the book so that readers have access to the book, and less
Yeah.
about, like, I would do it if all I did was break even, is I guess what I'm trying to
Sure.
say. Like I
Sure.
I really
I
love
just think
libraries.
I agree with you. And I think it's one of those things where it's a win-win because even if you
Yeah.
come into it with the heart of just, I want to break even, or even I'm willing to lose a small amount of money
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
this resource matters to me. I
Yep.
think, well, it's similar to there are people in my life that I buy their books because I just believe in them.
Yeah.
I believe in
Mm-hmm.
that person. I'm going to buy everything that they write because I believe in them and I want them to succeed
Yeah.
before they are proven.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Mm-hmm.
how libraries are a little bit. I'm willing to lose money because I think there's an abundance of money and there's an abundance of
Yeah.
readers out there.
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
Nobody is ever going to run out of readers. That everybody's
Yeah.
aging into our series today and tomorrow and the next
Mm-hmm.
day. You talked
Mm-hmm.
about the genre that you write. I'm curious a little bit. It seems to me that as we're talking about an abundance of readers, that your genre is very niche. What kind
Yeah.
of limiting thoughts did you have about that genre when you went into it? Or was it always just obvious to you that you could do fine?
That's really interesting. Yeah. So I write Christian suspense. I mean, Christian fiction, I don't consider super small. Like it's got a decent chunk of the pie. Christian suspense is a smaller chunk of that sub chunk. And then what I write, it's kind of gritty Christian fiction. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
PG-13. It's not like a Hallmark mystery, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel cozy. And so that does limit the readership. I don't know that I really struggled. I think I went into it just with so much passion to write that I wasn't thinking about, oh, I want to sell 100 copies. I want to sell 1,000 copies. I want to sell 1,000,000 copies. To me, it was, I want to write a book. And everything that happened after that was just kind of, happy blessings. And so for people who do write in small genres, one thing I love about Facebook is you can do some fun targeting options to kind of never run out of a potential audience. So like I just started a new audience. I've got some like pretty fall aesthetic type graphics with Facebook ads, and like pretty girl, fall colors, leaves. She's got her scarf, she's got her coffee cup, she's got a quote from the book. I created an audience of, okay, so people who like ebooks, obviously. I have a subset of, because Facebook has changed. So I can't go in and say, find me people who read the Bible, right? I used to be able to do that. I can't now. But I found some workarounds. So I'll be like, I've got a list of kind of like Christian celebrities or like Christian adjacent kinds of things. I'm like, okay, so they have to like those. They have to read thrillers. So I get, kind of the standards. None of the names are popping into my head at the moment, but like there's probably a good dozen or so mystery authors that you can target. And then I did like, and they have to like Starbucks and pumpkin pie spice, like, just kind of all that.
Nice.
Like,
so it's a very like seasonal kind of an ad. It
and it's
maybe won't win like in summer.
Exactly. But it's working really well right now. So I love kind of refreshing different audience options. Back when I could target Christian readers, I just had like 2 or 3 audiences that I just cycled through and like it worked. But this is actually a little more fun because I have to go around it kind of backwards and be like, well, is if I target, I don't know, like Target, the store, like, am I going to be more likely to find my readers or not? Turns out, Target's not a bad option for me. So I have fun with it. And so if people are in like a really, really small niche, like the person who writes like cyberpunk time travel Amish romance or something, like I think Facebook is really fun because you can take each section of that, find me people who like these cyberpunk things or cyberpunk adjacent things, find me people who like these Amish or Amish adjacent things. So I think of it kind of as just a fun little like it's almost like a whodunit, right? Like, so if I need to find a reader who likes this book, what hobbies, what music, what movies would they also be interested in?
One of the things I've never said on this podcast before that you made really abundantly clear to me is that the things that I actually like are not necessarily the things that gain me my readers. So if you looked at my Facebook feed, I click on a lot of stuff about fitness and sports and humor and music. Humor fits my books, but fitness, sports, and music don't really fit my audience. So if I think that I am the perfect avatar for my books and I try to just go in and create an audience based on me, I actually am going to fail because I'm not necessarily writing to myself. I'm writing something I love, but I actually consume very little of what I love. And that even includes the things I read. I read a lot of stuff outside of my genre. I read 90% of what I read, watch, listen to, and consume is outside of my genre. And so if I want to find the people who want to read my books, I need to clear myself out of the question in order to find the people who like me.
Exactly.
I can hear already that you agree with that, but talk to me. Is there ever a moment for you where you were confused about your audience or why your ads weren't working or why your books weren't selling the way you wanted them to? And what, like, how did you fix that problem?
A lot of my up and down with Facebook, I think, has more to do with just Facebook, right? Like when they roll out a
Yeah.
change or something, and we all like,
Yeah.
my Facebook ads stop
Yes. Yes.
working.
Yeah.
I have enough books. I try to, so I've got one funnel that's really, really narrowed down. I'm working really hard to get a couple backup funnels going so that when that one needs a break, I will be ready with some other things. But in terms of not being your ideal reader, that actually really got driven home for me when I was working on my newsletter, because I subscribe to zero. Oh, I subscribe to one fiction author's newsletter, and that's because
Yeah.
she's a friend of mine and she writes really funny things. And I love seeing like her humor. I don't read her books, but I love her. And so it's like the
Yeah.
one
So even though
time.
you subscribe, you don't buy her books. Yeah.
So realizing, I think it was the book Newsletter Ninja, and I was reading it, and she really drives home, you are not your ideal subscriber, and your ideal subscriber is not your ideal reader, because even though I subscribe to zero authors newsletter to buy their books, I am the ideal reader for some authors in that I tell my friends about their books.
Yeah.
I buy their books when they come out, but
Mm.
I don't follow their newsletter. And so that helped me get over, because I was like, I wouldn't want to hear from somebody like twice a week about books that
Yeah.
haven't come out yet.
Yeah.
But my ideal subscriber does. Right.
Yes.
So that was a pretty big one. And I actually think it's important for authors to do what you do and to consume outside of their genre. Otherwise, I think we can get too insulated and just start regurgitating everybody else's stuff.
Yep. Oh, I mean, everything that you said speaks to me so, so much. My friend Jeff called me the other day. When I say the other day, it could have been a month ago. Time is so weird for me.
Isn't it?
But yeah, he said, stop everything you're doing and read this book called Mount Chicago by Adam Levin. And I just trust him enough that when he tells me that, whatever it is, I stop and I go and I find it, and I bought it and I read it, and I was blown away. I thought it was amazing. He said, if any book is going to be the next great American novel, this book's going to be it. And I'm reading it, and like I got halfway in and I knew for sure he was wrong, but I also loved it. I was like, he's very, very stuck in his own belief about what is good, that he can't actually see outside of what he believes is good. So both things were true. Is like, it's amazing to have humans out there who read a book and they're so excited they tell their friends. I think that's when everything that ammo is doing for us goes into superdrive, is when sales start coming from other places more often than we actually give it credit for. It happens because the people that we target on Facebook get so flippin' excited about what they read that they say, hey, Pam, hey, Fred, hey, John, hey, Jane, this book is amazing. Stop everything you're doing and read it right now. That's a cool experience. So what I want to do right now is transition to the writing process just a little bit for anybody who's listening to this podcast and they're thinking, wow, ammo sounds really cool. There's some pitfalls, because if you're not devoted to writing great books, no matter how good your ads are, you might have trouble selling books. Talk to me a little bit about you and your writing process and how you knew that you were ready to go public in a very big way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I think I was a little bit backwards, like we talked about before, in that I just wanted a book out. So that's how it started. And then my first book got a lot of good recognition, got a lot of good word of mouth, won some awards. And so that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is going to work. What happened after that was harder. So, like my second book was probably one of the hardest to write, because I had built up book number one is so big in my mind. And now everybody's expecting stuff from me.
It's got to be bigger.
Yeah. And I was still on the review roller coaster. So one good Amazon review would make my day. One, even like not even bad review, but it was like, yeah, this was okay. It just probably wasn't really for me. Like I would be depressed for a week. What actually really helped me get over that is kind of what you were talking about in terms of readers sharing with each other. And it was just realizing when somebody's writing a review on my book, they're not writing it to me. They're not saying, "Dear Lana, I thought your book was bad and therefore you're a terrible person," which is how it felt when I was like that thin skinned. I realized, no, like you can read my book and decide it's not for you. I think what really drove it home, I've got a series set in North Korea. And one of the ho-hum reviews said basically like there were too many foreign names to keep track of, and I got confused.
Okay.
In the past,
Good luck reading Dostoevsky, by the way. Good
yeah,
grief.
right?
Anyways, okay.
In the past, I would have taken that to mean, Alana, you're a horrible human being, and I hope that, your family suffers because you wrote a book that confused me.
Yeah.
But eventually I got to where I'm like, okay, if this reader does not like foreign names and finds them confusing, then a book set in a very foreign country is obviously like, this person is obviously not my ideal reader. And then seeing, like I would get conflicting feedback from beta readers, which is why I eventually just stopped using them. Some would be like, "Oh, this scene needs a lot more drama," to, "Oh, this scene was way too fast paced." And it was completely contradictory. And so I just realized, like, once I write the book, you have the right to love it, to not love it, to be totally neutral about it. And that doesn't need to reflect on me at all.
Wow, we have to stop right there because you just said something you might not even realize how big what you just said was. You stopped using beta readers. What?
Yeah, well, because I was a huge people pleaser, and I thought that in order to be like, it seriously got this big in my head. I felt like in order to be a decent human being who had like who deserved to continue to exist, that I needed to take every single suggestion every single beta reader made and implement it into my manuscript. But then even with only like maybe 4 or 5 beta readers, there would be contradictory stuff, and it was literally impossible.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So and that tension of, oh no, somebody's, and to be fair, like if I beta read your book, the chance of me picking it up once it's published, like I hate to say it, it's pretty low, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. I already read this. Yeah,
I read it once. I'm probably not going to read it again. But in my head, I was like, if I don't change this, they're going to know that I didn't take and they're going to have their hurt feelings, and they're going to think I'm a terrible person. Like it was very ridiculous.
I'm so excited to hear what you're saying right now. For one, there's an abundance of readers. So if you have beta readers and they don't buy your book, that's totally fine. You have so many more readers out there. Don't worry about it. Like so many more readers. But what I want to say to that is that it took me a little while to understand that I was actually okay. I took maybe longer than you did to understand that I have a few people that I send it by, and I don't even call them beta readers. I just call them my friends. So I send, and there's a reason for this. So I send my book to Heather O'Brien, I send my book to Shane Simonson, and I send my book to my wife. And I get their feedback, and I take a small percentage of each of their feedbacks. Sometimes, like very recently, I have a book coming out eventually called Killing George Clooney. And he had an idea about that book that was off the charts better than what I had done. And I recognized immediately when he said it, I was like, oh, that's far superior to how I ended that book. So I'm really excited to revise the book toward his idea. But sometimes you get people who are oh, I was a little bit I didn't understand that movement. I didn't understand what your character was doing there. I didn't feel like the character was fully realized. I thought the plot kind of slowed down here. And sometimes you just know, you're like, I actually meant to slow the plot down there. I meant to take this story and give you an opportunity to breathe before you go into this next really big moment, which you write thrillers. So I know that you appreciate the idea of giving people a chance to breathe. Like not every book can be the movie Taken with Liam Neeson.
Right.
Sometimes you need
that would be exhausting. It would. Yeah. It'd be emotionally exhausting to read.
Yes. So, all right. So with that in mind, Christian thriller, gritty Christian thriller, is there cursing in your books? Is there immoral behavior from good people? How do you slice it? What do you decide with your main character? Where are your boundaries?
Yeah. So I know there were a couple things that my readers just are not going to be okay with. They're never going to be okay with like open door bedroom scenes. They're never going to be okay with, like certain words. And so I I don't do any of that. Beyond that, so basically with Christian fiction, I think of it as two different genres with two different motivations. So for some people, Christian fiction is, I want to give readers a clean morality tale, right? And so it's almost like it's almost an allegory, like this is taken to an extreme, but like Sally's going to go through this hard thing so that I can preach to readers about how people should behave during hard times. Like that's simplified. For me, I think of it more as life is messy, and there are a lot of questions, a lot of dilemmas, a lot of issues that a lot of Christians haven't really thought through. So I like to poke the bear a small amount or maybe a medium amount to be like, hey, have you guys thought about this? And so I like to present, for example, I will take topics that a lot of Christians would find controversial, and I'll have characters who some fall on this side of the spectrum, some fall on that side of the spectrum. And I don't try to make the books preachy. I don't try to like bash you on the head and say, oh, and by the way, this is what Alana Terry says is the truth. It's more about, can you picture having a conversation with somebody who shares your belief but doesn't vote for the same person you do? Or is that so outside of your head? You know what I mean? That like you can't even picture that. So the one thing my books do have that leads them into the gritty, you know, they can get kind of violent, they can get pretty intense. My North Korea series, for example, book 1 is about a woman imprisoned because her dad's a Christian. So, you know, like she goes through everything you would expect somebody in, you know, a terrible place to go through. I've got one about a teen runaway who's trafficked, and it's her mom who's trying to, you know, save her out of this. So thematically, they are pretty gritty.
Yeah. I enjoy that a lot. So first off, everybody who listens to this podcast already knows that I grew up in the Christian tradition and that I still kind of flirt with Christianity in ways. I have a hard time saying I'm a Christian because I don't know where to place myself right now. But I was thinking kind of recently about, I have tattoos on my arms about I am the vine and you are the branches. You know, and thinking about like that experience of being all connected together. Humans, whether we identify with the same religion or not, we're all branches. We're all part of this divine experience. I know exactly where I'm going in my head. I wish I could quickly get there in this conversation. But there is something about the universal experience. Whether you present it as gritty as I do, which I'm rated R, you're PG-13. Some people, the other guy that I had on the podcast, anybody who's listening knows who I'm talking about. I'm just trying to keep it kind of like more general, but he's rated G, you know, he's not going to go.
Or Naomi, I think it's probably pretty G.
Naomi's very G. Yes. Naomi's very G. But you know, when you think about this level of how we're going to present the world, we're all trying to share with our readers an experience of the world that is the truest version that we understand. And part of that is representing the lows in a really deep way, but not in a way that hurts. I don't know. It's a weird thing. How often do you think about how far you want to take your reader, and how often do you take something out of a book because you thought I maybe went too far there for what I'm trying to do? Or do you just trust your intuition and go where you're going?
Yeah, in general, I would say about 80% of the time, I trust my intuition. I've got the benefit of having written enough books that there's very little that I would publish. Like if somebody doesn't like, if I'm too edgy of a Christian writer for some Christian readers, which I am, they've already found that out by now. Right? Does that make sense? So
of course,
I feel a little bit of freedom because I know that there are some Christian readers who I take things too far, and they already know that about me. So they're not going to pick up this book, or they're going to pick up one book and find it's not for them. The times I do consider it. So for example, I'm writing a book right now that is going to be for an anthology. It's in the back of my head more than I want it to be. I would love to have the freedom to just, this is a story on my heart. We'll take it where it's going to go. That's how I do it for my solo novels. I'm a little more cognizant in this one because it's a tad more mainstream, right? It's like it's Christian romantic suspense. It's a little bit more tropey. So I'm
Yeah.
reining myself in a tiny bit, but I know I can only give myself a little bit of self-censorship before I kind of shut down anyway. So in the end, the story's got to go where it's got to go. One time I left, like, two of my characters were having a huge fight. Like, I was being a total jerk. The character says to him, "Stop being such a jerk." And I knew that jerk was not the right word to use.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in my first draft, I wrote the word that actually came to mind, but I knew that I
Yeah.
was going to, I just had to get it out. And I knew I was going to clean it up by the time
Okay,
it
nice. So you
print.
wrote the word and then you
I
came back
wrote
and
the
fixed it.
word,
That's great.
but I
I
did
love
not
it.
publish it. So sometimes I'll do things like that.
Okay.
Sometimes I might go back and like, okay, I'm gonna tidy this up 5%.
50%.
No, just
Yes. Okay.
5.
Even 5. I love it. That's so great. Yeah. I am, like I said, rated R. So everything you can imagine. And this podcast kind of varies back and forth between rated G and rated R. So, and I tell people that when you come in and listen, it's listed on every podcast app as rated R. I want people to know it's explicit. Some episodes will come out depending on who I'm talking to and what they want to say. I'll just go with them. I'll kind of mirror what my guest wants to do for their own brand, because I think that that's so important. What I think is interesting is and this applies to genre too, is that if we want to kind of travel where the world takes us, I think it's challenging sometimes to carry other people, because, for example, you write gritty thrillers that are Christian. In what if, for example, you wanted to write like the Screw Tape Letters, but as a gritty version of the Screw Tape Letters? That probably would be slightly further than your audience is used to going. Do you feel a responsibility to stay online, or what would you do if you chose to write something, that was outside of their bounds?
I do like to see my calling as making my readers at least partially uncomfortable. Not because I'm mean and want them to suffer, but I like to present things that make you think, that stay with you. I'm not writing for escapism, and I'm not writing to preach a sermon. I'm writing for somebody who doesn't mind being challenged by reading hard things. So one thing I did do, I wrote a spin-off spy thriller series. I don't think it's available anywhere anymore. I published it under AJ Terry just because I knew like it was PG-13 plus. What happened there, it turned into a little bit of a branding mess, because the people who bought it were my Christian fiction readers. So that kind of messed up the algorithm and stuff. What I have is I have a cleaned up version where I took it from PG-13 plus to just PG-13, but I haven't republished it because it was going to be a 6-book series and I only got to book 4. So it's just kind of sitting there. So I tried it once because I thought that would be a little more freeing. And I guess writing it knowing that I could be AJ Terry, not Alana Terry. But then from the marketing, it got a little too messy.
Yeah. I am so excited to hear you say that. And I'm excited to think about that even after this conversation. I've never even thought about a pseudonym so far. But again, you and I are in slightly different places. I haven't quite reached a level of confidence in just my mainline stuff to branch out. I do have a memoir out that's very different than the mysteries that I write, but it's you have Joanna Penn, who writes nonfiction marketing kind of books. She writes fiction, and she writes some romance, and she brands differently based on every single thing that she does. She's very concerned about the algorithm. I think that you have other people. Recently, I had some musicians on my show, which was a bit off brand, but they talked about kind of traveling in and out of different genres of music. And we landed on Radiohead. And you have some people who are able to do this massive transformation from, being Christian thrillers to gritty Christian thrillers to romance writers and all those things.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not even asking a question here. I just am kind of reflecting on what you're saying and thinking about how amazing this journey is and how differently
can unfold for all of us.
Yeah. Well, like if you imagine you're going to see a painter's, like a retrospective that spans decades. Like you don't really
Yeah.
expect it to be, oh, here's a nice, cute little still life when he was 20 years old. And look, he's 80 and still painting like nice little cute still lifes, right? Like that's kind of
Yes.
stagnant.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. Over that amount of time, if you haven't grown, did you do something? Did you really experience the full scope of what this journey was about? I noticed you have plants behind you. What are the importance of plants in your experience? You have airplane plants and philodendron, and I can't quite see the other ones, but
let's see. Yeah.
you
I've got lots of
you love
plants.
greenery.
I do. Let's see. I've not actually cohesively thought through behind them. I like them and they make me happy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's probably about it.
If you saw any other area of our house, you would know. Certainly my wife likes them, but I've got a couple of cacti here.
Uh-huh.
And I really enjoy succulents. So I think that creating a space or an environment that is conducive to work is important. We're going to close out here with two last questions. I'll ask them both so you can answer them kind of at any length that you want. But
Okay.
one, how do you create the environment that is conducive to work? And two, where can readers find you, get your books, and enjoy more of Alana Terry?
Awesome. So yeah, I was actually just talking with a friend over lunch about the environment because I would love to be the kind of person who could take my laptop and write anywhere. I would love to be able to be waiting to pick up my kid and just pull it out in the car and type for 5 minutes. Or, to be sitting in the airport and have 15 minutes before it was time to board and just be working away at my novel. And that's just not me. And if I could change that about myself, I would have changed it by now. But the fact that it hasn't changed by now is a pretty good indication that this is just how I am. And so for me, it really took learning to speak up for what my creativity needs. I can speak up for my children in a way that I can't usually speak up for myself. And so sometimes I will even think about my creativity like a child that needs to be protected. And so, for example, when we moved into this home, we've got 3 kids, 3 teen boys. I would have loved to say, all right, guys, here's our new home. Go pick your rooms and I'll take the leftover to be my office. But I knew that if the lighting's wrong, if the feel is wrong, it's not going to be conducive. So I had to go the opposite. I had to walk through each room and I had to say, all right, this one's my office. You guys have fun figuring out where you're going to be. It felt bad for me because I think as moms, we're so used to always putting our families before everything. But I knew it's what my creativity needed. And so when I think about my creativity, like a plant, it needs this, it needs that. It's not being selfish because it doesn't like this window, but it does like that window. That's just the way it is. Right. And so, I work hard at protecting my office space. So for example, if my husband and I are having some conflict, this would be a convenient place because we could shut the door and have some privacy, but this is not where that would happen. Or similarly, like if there's horrible busy work that I just hate, like taxes or something, like if I just hate the thought of doing it, I'm not going to do it in my office because I want to keep my office feeling like a place where I love to go. I want it to feel like a sanctuary energy.
Sure.
And that's probably the better answer for why the plants are here, right? To create that feel of a sanctuary and of a retreat so that I can be the most inspired.
Yeah. Well, first off, just let us know anytime you need taxes done because my wife is an accountant.
Perfect. I love it. How fortuitous.
Right, exactly. No, I mean, I resonate with that so much. There's so much that you just said that is beautiful. I hope that people actually heard you. You took your office first and you did it for the exact right reasons. It wasn't like,
I wasn't being selfish.
Exactly. Not selfish. You were being selfless. You were saying, if I don't have this office, I can't be the kind of mom I want to be.
Yeah. Or the writer.
And the writer and the wife and all of those things. Yeah, I completely, I do. I resonate with that so loudly right now. I've been thinking a lot about the kind of mindset that I have toward my life. And
I had some friends out. In fact, I've talked about them in a couple of podcasts recently. My friend John, who was a groomsman at my wedding, and his new girlfriend, Jessica. And we were talking about some of my struggles with AMO and why I have been one of the rare ones who hasn't had the success that I should, that I know is destined for me. And Jessica looked at me over this fire and she said, what do you believe is supposed to happen to you? And it was like this just realization, this deep understanding that I believe that the only way I can have success is if I work harder than everybody, if I put in more hours, if I sweat harder, if I bleed more, if I get more beat up. And when I realized that, I thought the whole reason that Steve created this program is because he realized when you get your ads good, when your landing page is good, well, shoot, it's so easy. It feels like a miracle. Feels like a miracle. You just like look at it for 5 minutes in the morning and make sure that your views were right, and then you go write your books. Isn't that crazy? It's weird. So thankful to have had this time with you. You're an amazing person. I haven't read your books, but I know that you're an amazing writer because your heart and your spirit toward everything that you're doing is wonderful. You didn't tell us where to find you. I'll put your doorbuster link into this podcast, unless you're really concerned about statistics.
I say, is that an AMA thing to do? No, people can find books. Alana Terry, if you're interested in Christian suspense. I also run the Success Writer Academy. We have ads, courses for Amazon ads and things like that. So people can look me up there if they're not a reader of that genre, but still wants to hear more about what I'm doing as a writer.
Awesome. All righty. We'll get all that into the show notes for the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. Go enjoy Alaska before it gets too cold to enjoy.
I know it's going to be soon. We've got snow on the mountains already. So winter is basically here.
Thank you for listening to TRBM. The theme music was provided by the ever-talented Christopher Talon. And hey, if you liked what you heard, share this show with other readers, because what's the point of telling stories if nobody's listening?